learning more about this amazing museum. So with that, I'll turn things over to Charles.
Great. Well, again, good evening, everybody. I'm coming to you from the new National Museum of the United States Army. We opened on Veterans Day, very appropriate. We're located here in Fairfax County, Virginia, adjacent to Fort Belvoir on the Fairfax County Parkway, very close to I-95, if you all are familiar with Northern Virginia. So what I'd like to do is spend the next hour or so walking you through the main galleries of the museum to show you what's going on here, and then also to point out some particular objects and artifacts that I think are especially interesting, and just to take your questions about the museum. So I'm going to switch my camera view around, and I'm going to show what I'm looking at as we walk around. We're in the lobby of the building. Some fast facts about the new museum. It's 85,000 square feet of exhibit space, which makes us just a little bit bigger than the Marine Corps Museum down at Quantico, which I am proud to report. Go Army, beat Navy. Sorry about that, Kelly, as the mother of a new sailor. But I'm showing you some of the lobby area. Really impressive. On the terrazzo floor here in the lobby, we've got the Army Seal. Really beautiful. On the wall behind it, we've got a campaign wall that lists all of the Army's campaigns throughout its history, from the American Revolution to Operation Inherent Resolve today in Iraq. And then up in the ceiling are a group of stained glass installations, which are glass representations of the Army's campaign streamers. These are the streamers that Army units carry on their colors, indicating that they have participated in a particular campaign. So it's really beautiful space, the donor wall here. And then I'll point out over here by the entrance, the Experiential Learning Center. So when you come to visit, one of the features you'll see is this center, which is a STEM learning center that allows groups to go through and to experience Army tactics, techniques, and procedures related to things like engineering, road building, medicine, satellite imagery, and things like that in a competitive gaming format. The activities are tied to the Virginia State Standards of Learning as well. And so it's a great place for school groups, but also individuals who want to learn more about what soldiers do. Also inside of the Experiential Learning Center is a place oriented for school-age children called Fort Discover. That's currently closed right now in COVID because it's a primarily hands-on experience for younger children. But we anticipate opening that up when health conditions permit. So the galleries is our gathering space in the museum. We've got a museum store and a cafe as well. But I'll point out as we begin the walk, you'll see throughout our museum these soldier story pylons. And these are cast metal pylons with etchings of individual soldiers throughout Army history and their stories. The one I'm showing you here is Lieutenant Colonel Rick Rescorla, who fought in Vietnam in the Ia Drang Valley. He was featured in the movie We Were Soldiers and the book We Were Soldiers Once and Young. And he was a security member in the World Trade Center on September 11th, who gave his life protecting employees in the World Trade Center on September 11th. But the soldier story pylons are arranged as if they are a formation of soldiers. And you walk into the museum via a view of these individual soldier stories. We've got Audie Murphy here, another famous soldier. Colonel Charles Young, one of the first African-American graduates of West Point. And then we move into the Fighting for the Nation gallery. And we've got, again, the pylons, which are arranged as if they're squads of soldiers marching into service. And so the theme of our museum, the National Museum of the U.S. Army, is every soldier has a story. And we tell the story of our nation's Army through the eyes and the experiences of its soldiers. One of the soldiers here in the front row of pylons, Ashley White Stumpf, she was featured on NBC Nightly News on Veterans Day. She's an ROTC graduate who was killed in fighting in Afghanistan. So we walk down the row of soldier story pylons here, and we enter the gallery. We have the U.S. Army Soldiers Creed depicted on the lit wall here in front of you. We have an Army theater, which shows 3 times each hour an Army movie about current and historical Army operations. It's a 4D movie, so it's got sound, noise, the seats shake when tanks drive by, the wind blows when a helicopter flies over. So it's a kind of an immersive experience of being a soldier. And we continue walking into the gallery. We highlight the Army values throughout the galleries in various formats. Here you see our wall again that depicts those values: loyalty, duty, selfless service, respect, honor, integrity, and personal courage. And then we walk into the Fighting for the Nation gallery. This is a 21st century museum, extremely technical in nature. It's got all of the show control qualities you expect in a 21st century museum. It's a very multimedia friendly museum. So we strike a balance between artifacts and telling stories through objects which connect with people, photographs, but also video, multimedia displays, touchscreen displays. For example, I'll show you the table here, which gives you the ability to zone in and to see how you interact with the displays in the museum. During COVID, we give each guest to the museum, each visitor, a stylus that they can use to navigate the interactives and continue to use them. Here's an example of one of our interactives, Army 101. It's a touch screen that allows you to explore different aspects of the current United States Army, such as its branches, its units, its ranks, personal awards and badges, and the finesse. I'll stop here at one of our cast figures. So the museum is filled with cast figures, which are really 21st century mannequins. These are all the human cast figures, in any case, are modeled on current U.S. Army soldiers, but of course this one is not. But this is my favorite cast figure in the museum, and this is an Army mule, and it's as if it's a pack mule that would have been used on the American frontier in the 1870s to carry ammunition, and he's got some ammo crates on his back here. So this is my personal favorite of the cast figures in the museum. So we'll go into the museum's exhibit galleries. They're organized chronologically through the Army's history from the American Revolution to the current day, except for a gallery called Army and Society. And I'll begin there. And the intent in the Army and Society gallery is to demonstrate the many ways in which the Army has shaped and affected American society, but how also American society continues to shape the Army, of course, because we are an army of citizen soldiers and our Army is about people. And so I think this is a really interesting gallery that talks about the ways the Army is always changing but reflecting American society. An interesting object here. This is the helmet of Major General Maurice Rose. He was the senior Jewish American soldier killed in action during World War II. He was a 2-star general who was killed in action in Europe in World War II. But we'll walk through the Army and Society gallery. It's a fascinating space that's got a number of larger artifacts as well as smaller artifacts. We tell a story in these pylons called My Fellow Americans, where we take currently serving Army soldiers and we describe not only their lives as soldiers, but their lives as American citizens and what they do when they take off the uniform, how they serve their communities, how they're a part of their communities. We've got a full-scale replica of the original Wright Flyer. Of course, you'll know that at Fort Myer, Virginia, the first military aircraft flight occurred, and the Army pilot, in that case, who flew with Orville Wright, Lieutenant Thomas Selfridge, was killed in an accident during that flight. So he was the first military flight casualty as well. We're walking further into the exhibit gallery. because I want to show you my favorite artifact in this gallery. And this is the flight suit that was worn by a monkey called Monkey Abel. In 1959, NASA strapped a monkey, a rhesus monkey, into this flight suit, into the nose cone of a Venus rocket, and Monkey Abel orbited the Earth. And so as an Army astronaut, Monkey Abel had his flight suit retired here to the National Army Museum. But a really interesting space. We talk about medicine in this gallery. We talk about veteran support organizations. We talk about engineering. The Army Corps of Engineers is prominently featured here. Transportation. We've got a Liberty truck in the back, which was a 1920s Army cargo truck, one of the first mass-produced cargo vehicles in America. Up in the roof, we've got hanging a Sikorsky R-4B helicopter, which was used in World War II, actually, for a casualty evacuation in 1944. But one of the first rotary wing aircraft ever invented by Igor Sikorsky. So Kelly, do we have any initial questions from the Army and Society Gallery?
Yes, we do. The question is, can you describe how many of the artifacts were identified and secured for the museum?
Sure. The way a museum does that is called a storyline, and the storyline for this museum was collaboratively developed by a group of historians and museum professionals in the 2010 timeframe. And so what they did was that they identified by the storyline the objects they wished included in what would be called an artifact plan. So our first stop was the Army's collection. The Army maintains a collection of over 600,000 artifacts already. And so we sourced most of the 1,400 artifacts that are in the museum on display from the existing Army collection. And then based on the needs that we discovered from that, we went out with the help of our foundation partner, the nonprofit, and we actually acquired a number of the artifacts in the museum from private vendors. Some artifacts were donated to the museum for that purpose. And so via those three sources, we sourced the artifacts for the museum.
One other question is, when did the museum open and how long did it take to build?
Well, my joke is that it only took us 245 years to open the Army Museum. Not actually true. We are the last service museum to open, but the building process for the museum took about 3 years. So in September of 2017, we broke ground, and we opened 2 days ago, November 11th, 2020. So the building process took us about 3 years.
Wonderful. I've got two more questions and then we can move on to the next gallery. One question is, we have a second grader watching. This is wonderful. And she wonders what the squares are on the floor of the Army and Society Gallery.
Well, I'm going to walk. So now I'm
He's
curious.
Gonna go look.
That's a great question. So I'm going to walk back in and I'm going to figure out. So I think she may be referring to.
She said they looked like gray boxes.
Yep, these are what I think she's looking at, and they're actually just seating area. They're benches.
Well, they're very pretty.
They're just lit benches. That's right.
And actually, thinking of the metal benches, but also how did you decide on which soldiers to feature on the pylons, on the metal pylons?
Well, that's a great question. So we started with what a soldier would have looked like in the era that we were depicting. And then with the help of the Army's staff, and mostly in the Washington, D.C. region, because lots of soldiers are assigned here, we went out via the Military District of Washington, and we put out basically a casting call for soldiers with given heights, weights, and genders. And we located soldiers basically who matched, who resembled the soldiers we were trying to depict. And so that's actually a really good segue into the first of our chronological galleries, which is Founding the Nation. And I'll show you this guy here. who is our cast figure representing a Continental soldier. And so this is, I'll zoom in on his face. This is the face of a currently serving Army soldier, but he's dressed in a reproduction Continental soldier's uniform, and he represents a private in the 1st Maryland Regiment of the Continental Army. But it's hard to tell in the camera, but standing here, he's shorter than I am, and I'm 5'7", so I'm not a big guy, and he's smaller than I am. And so what we show with our cast figures are really the dimensions of historical people. So we know that people in the 18th century were smaller than they are today. So it's a good example of that. So we are in the gallery that talks about the colonial and revolutionary era. And so back to our second grader, when we talk about blocks and building blocks, this display is a way in a visual format to show us what the building blocks of an army are. And they're things like a kettle, blankets, flour, paper, canteens, horses, gunpowder, engineers, wagons, bread, saltpeter for gunpowder. But at the top, of course, you've got soldiers. And so all of the building blocks of an army. This gallery is filled with beautiful artifacts. We do have a really strong collection of colonial era artifacts. I'll point out this one of my favorites. This is an engraved powder horn carried by a Continental soldier. His name, and you can see it, it's beautiful engraving on this ivory powder horn. And his name was Levi Gatchett. It says Levi Gatchett, his horn. November the 30th, 1775, made in Dorchester in Gage's War. And so he carried this during the siege of Boston in 1775. And so we've got lots of beautiful artifacts. We tell the story again through images, many of which are iconic, through objects. This is an example of a Continental Army guidon or a flag, a color used to align a unit on the battlefield. We have weapons, we have personal accoutrements. But we also have a number of interactives that again allow the visitor to walk through the events of history via some moving map displays, via what we call battle histories, in which you can drill into actual battles and learn about them. So we can look at the Siege of Yorktown, for example. Press that again. Tensions have been mounting for years. And so we show with maps and images as well. And again, so it's audio, it's video, it's extremely multimedia, but it's also very rich in artifacts and stories. So I'll wrap this gallery up by talking about the War of 1812, of course. That's when this period sort of properly ends. And I'll show, again, one of our really iconic artifacts in the museum's collection is the sword, that I'm showing here on the top of the display. There are two here, but the one on the top was carried by Captain John Bowery at the Battle of Fort McHenry. So during the War of 1812, the battle in which the Star-Spangled Banner was written, Captain Bowery was a battery commander of artillery inside Fort McHenry, and he carried this saber during the battle. So Kelly, any questions on the Founding the Nation gallery?
We have a couple questions that aren't about the particular gallery, although I have a sense that we'll get some that come in. We do have a question about, do you know who the soldiers were in the trailer video for the grand opening?
Yes, those soldiers were members of the Old Guard. The 3rd U.S. Infantry Regiment is the ceremonial Army unit here in Washington that performs the parades, ceremonies. They also have a detachment that conducts funerals at Arlington National Cemetery. But one of the detachments of the Old Guard is responsible for displaying and depicting soldiers of different eras. So those are currently serving soldiers of the Old Guard.
Great. And is there a Medal of Honor gallery in the museum?
There is indeed. It's on the 3rd floor. I'm sorry to say that time does not permit us to show it to you, but there is a Medal of Honor gallery, and there's a Medal of Honor garden out on the exterior of the museum. where we depict on a wall all of the Army's Medal of Honor recipients.
Wonderful. I'm going to ask you one last question and then we'll move on to the next gallery. This asks, where are the items from the Women's Army Corps Museum, which was previously at Fort McClellan? Where are they located now?
Well, that museum actually moved a few years ago to Fort Lee, Virginia. And so the Army Women's Museum is located now at Fort Lee. And they actually maintain that Women's Army Corps collection at Fort Lee, Virginia. So, so definitely pay it a visit.
And also, I seem to recall the director of that museum is also a William and Mary grad too.
She is Tracy Bradford, and she's a legacy as well. Her daughter is a student at William and Mary now.
Fantastic. All right, let's move on to our next gallery.
Okay. Turn it around. We're now in the Preserving the Nation gallery. So this is the gallery that depicts the American Civil War and the Mexican-American War. So each one of the historic galleries also, in addition to the name of the gallery, depicts the battle streamers that units of that era and that conflict would have earned for their colors. And then you also get a brief timeline. And then all of the galleries have a glass front case out in the main concourse, which would allow a visitor that has a limited amount of time to basically gain an overview of the contents of that gallery without actually going in. But stepping into the gallery, this is, again, the gallery on the American Civil War. And so we do tell the story of the American Civil War, of course, from the perspective of the American soldier. And we know that this is one of the most controversial spaces in the museum. And we ask our staff not to shy away from those controversial subjects, but we do tell the story of the American soldier, i.e. the Union soldier. And so here's a diorama in this gallery of a Napoleon gun, which is provenance to the Battle of Gettysburg and depicting a scene during the Battle of Gettysburg. But again, this gallery is rich in objects, weapons, uniforms, flags, but also stories. So we work hard to link objects to individuals, to portray human stories behind these objects and behind these major events. We have a theater which shows a movie that discusses Ulysses S. Grant's Union Army war-winning strategy in 1864-65. But the theater is modeled on Massaponax Church up in Spotsylvania County, Virginia, where during the 1864 campaign, Grant held a council of war involving the church's pews. And so the benches in the museum or in the theater are modeled on those church pews. And another one of our icons here in the museum, this is a kepi worn by General Ulysses S. Grant. And I'll show you a little bit. It's hard to see because of the reflection light, but this is Grant's kepi. Again, not a big man. This is not a big cap. He's normally depicted wearing a slouch hat in many of the iconic photos of him, but this is his kepi, and again, it's got the general officer's braid on the top of the kepi, and some full-scale representations of other Union soldiers, again telling their stories. And here, another beautiful example of the flags and colors we maintain in the museum. This flag was actually carried by a black regiment. This was carried by the 12th United States Infantry, a colored U.S. colored troops regiment of freedmen who joined in Port Hudson, Louisiana, late in the war. Outside the city, Sherman defeated him 3 times and took Atlanta in early September. So Kelly, any questions for the Preserving the Nation gallery?
We don't have any questions right now, but as you walk, we may get some more in.
Okay. We do depict some items of Confederate origin, but again, these are depicted in the context of surrender, actually. And so the colors that you see here, the Confederate national flag here, was actually surrendered by a Confederate unit during the Atlanta campaign. A pair of leather gauntlets belonging to Joshua Chamberlain, of course, famous commander of the 20th Maine at Gettysburg.
Charles, how long should you allow yourself to tour the museum?
We're timing our tickets right now in 2-hour increments. I would say that it's a challenge to get to it all in 2 hours, if I'm being honest. But the purpose of the time tickets and the allocations is to keep people safe. We're operating under the state of Virginia's guidance that we maintain at 25% of the building's capacity, and so that requires us to keep our timed admissions to 2-hour increments.
Thank you. Another question, Charles, who was the exhibit designer?
The exhibit designer, the designer of record, was Skidmore, Owings and Merrill, and the exhibits were produced by a company called Design and Production, or D&P, which has done most of the major museums in the capital region.
And Matt Fine wants to know if there are any quote unquote refreshments at this museum. I may or may not have added the quotes.
There is a really good cafe. It's actually run by a company called Flick, which does most of the museum restaurants and cafes in the capital region. They also serve Compass Coffee, which is a Marine veteran-owned coffee company here in DC. But there are no quote-unquote libations, if I get Matt's meaning, unfortunately. All right, let's move on to our next gallery. We're looking now at the Fighting for the Nation gallery, and this covers the World War I era. Maybe my favorite gallery of all in the museum, because I'm a World War I nerd now, and that's kind of what I'm interested in. But we do display some artifacts and items from the Army's early 20th century overseas expeditions, such as the Spanish-American War, the Philippine Insurrection, and the Boxer Rebellion. So really interesting items here. But then we move into the World War I section by depicting a trench environment on the Western Front in World War I. It's really incredibly beautifully done, all the way from the display of the weapons and uniforms. The 3 uniform coats here are from 3 brothers who served in the American Expeditionary Forces in different divisions. But really, it's really beautifully done and evocative. Another one of my favorites, this helmet was worn by Sergeant Alvin York in the Meuse-Argonne when he earned his Medal of Honor in 1918. Just one of the iconic items. This was held in the collection of the 82nd Airborne Division Museum at Fort Bragg because Sergeant York served in the 82nd Infantry Division in World War I. But this is our World War I action tableau gallery. An incredibly interesting space. The cast figures depict a battle scene during the Meuse-Argonne offensive, and we display
I was spellbound by the fact that here I was.
World War I combat camera footage and soldier accounts in the background of the tableau. And here we've got one of our larger artifacts, a Renault FT-17 tank called the Five of Hearts, which served in the Meuse-Argonne. It's got over 1,300 shell fragments and bullet holes embedded in it from its service in the Meuse-Argonne. And we have pictures of it being pulled off of the battlefield. It's quite an evocative space, and it's, as I said, it's probably my favorite space in the museum, just for the way it combines objects, cast figures, artifacts. The German field piece here is an artifact, and video and audio. Here we have a wall of World War I soldier postcards. and some of them are embedded with their messages to family on the back, so the visitor can view the postcard, and then on some of them, they can flip it and they can read the soldier's message home. So this soldier's talking about a visit to Monte Carlo on leave in the south of France, indulging in real French beer. So Matt Fine, that's for you.
We've got a lot of questions in this gallery. One of them is, did the American Army use horses in World War I? And if so, do any exhibits show the use of horses?
They actually, they did use horses for sure. These were largely horse-bound armies, even though they were mechanized to a certain degree. So I'm going to see if, now that you've called an audible on me, if I can find the horse gas mask that we have in the collection. Yeah, here we go. So what I'm showing you here is a horse's gas mask. And so it's got a cast figure of a horse's nose there and snout. But then that's where the gas mask would fit over the horse's nose with a leather harness.
Then other questions that they had were about, was there a pre-opening ceremony for museum for Army personnel and their families? I'm not sure if that happened because of COVID.
We conducted an opening ceremony on the 11th, but due to COVID, we had to make it a virtual only event. So unfortunately, we were not able to invite Army veterans to the ceremony itself, but it is viewable online if anyone is interested.
And then for folks who are Army vets who come to the museum, are there any special aspects of the museum that you encourage folks to see and engage with?
I believe I would say that the Experiential Learning Center has a feature called Growing Up Army and a feature called Brats to Boots that talks about people who have been Army brats and grown up in the military. But it also allows people to engage with the stories of Army families. So I think that's a particularly meaningful one for veterans to be able to discuss with their families what it was like to serve. The museum's website, thenemusa.org, has what we call a registry of the American soldier, which is a free service where you can register your biographical information also as a soldier. And you can also, you can purchase a paver brick on the plaza that commemorates your own service and is displayed in the plaza. A lot of museums now do that. But those are all, I think, things that are particularly meaningful for veterans.
Another question is, do you partner with other museums to kind of share their artifacts for temporary special exhibits?
We do. We have active partnerships with major national and international museums, including the French Army Museum in Paris. We're also in talks to receive an exhibit from the Bob Hope Museum on Bob Hope's morale building activities with U.S. troops, and various other museums that depict aspects of Army history. We're also active in loaning material, for example, from the Army Art Collection to the Norman Rockwell Museum.
Wonderful. I just wanted to do a time check, Charles. It's about 6:10.
Right.
So.
Well, good. We're right on schedule, and I will move to our next gallery, which is called Global War. This is the gallery, of course, that covers the World War II era. The galleries in the National Museum are sized proportional to the number of the proportional size of American citizens' participation in the conflicts. And so, of course, this gallery covering the nation's largest war is the largest gallery in the museum. There are two major artifacts that you'll see in the gallery that always stick out. This is a Sherman tank called the Cobra King. This tank was the first tank into the town of Bastogne to relieve Bastogne during the Battle of the Bulge in late 1944. This was the lead tank of Patton's Third Army as it approached Bastogne, Belgium. And you can see this is the original lettering and paint on the side of the tank, Cobra King. This is the tank. It was recovered to its condition based on photographs of the action. So we have a lieutenant who is pointing the tank into Bastogne, but the tank is fitted out in its colors, in its designations with equipment on the outside based on, again, on photographs. So we reconstructed the ammo boxes here on the front, the tow cable that's on the front of the tank, the snow that would have been on it in the winter in Belgium. And it's a really evocative piece. Over here, we have a Higgins boat. This is one of 6 known to exist still landing craft from the Normandy invasion that exist. This particular landing craft has not been able to be specifically traced to which beach it landed and when, but we believe it to have participated in the Utah beach landings at Normandy. And so it depicts a group of soldiers coming down a cargo net from a troop transport into the Higgins boat. And this is the original boat. This is a D-Day veteran. And so here you've got a combat cameraman. You've got a Coast Guardsman who is the one of the crew members of the Higgins boat. And you've got the American soldiers who are coming down the caving ladder onto the Higgins boat. And again, just the realism of the soldiers is really off the charts. It's incredibly evocative to see. We've got here a Bofors gun crew, an anti-aircraft gun that is crewed by an all African-American soldier crew. Of course, the Army employed segregated units during World War II, and this diorama of a gun crew recognizes the service of African-Americans in World War II. Here we've got a Women's Army Corps soldier representing a 5th Army soldier from the Italian Theater of Operations. Here, another one of my favorites, an 82nd Airborne paratrooper, a lieutenant of the 82nd from the D-Day jump. The globe is another interactive here. It sort of gives you an interesting view of the worldwide scope of the war.
A war that had been raging for 4 years in Asia and more than 2 in Europe.
Particular artifacts in this section from the Pacific theater of the war as well. But on the back wall, we have a visual representation of the cost of the war, with some of the statistics that talk about the scale of the war. Each of the small figures in the display represents 5,000 soldiers. So just to give you, again, a visual scale, some people are visual learners, but just to give you a sense of the scale of our participation in World War II, every one of these small figures, and they're about 3 inches tall each, represents 5,000 soldiers.
Question,
The
Charles.
interactives here
Oh, sorry.
go into some detail regarding the conduct of the Normandy landings. I'm sorry, Kelly, go ahead.
Sure, there's 2 questions. If there's anything on the soldiers from Greenland or Alaska from World War II.
There is, and so we have several artifacts in the space from the Aleutian campaigns, and then upstairs in the museum, another feature that unfortunately time doesn't permit me showing you. Our art gallery actually depicts several pieces of Army-produced art from the Aleutian campaigns. Also, the China-Burma-India Theater. Interesting, we've got a couple of pilots' jackets from the CBI. This flight jacket worn by a member of the famous Flying Tigers, the American volunteer group of fighter pilots who supported the nationalist Chinese.
Charles, is the Army Air Corps included in the World War II area, or would that be at the Air Force Museum?
Oh boy, that's a great question. It's absolutely included because in World War II, airmen were Army soldiers, and so our visual overhead in this museum displays a series of box formations of B-17 bombers that are en route to a bombing mission over Germany. And so we absolutely tell the Army Air Corps story in this museum. Really effective use here of the recruiting posters. I love the large illuminated recruiting posters that form the wall, the glass wall here in this gallery. A little more modern here. This is the first #1 Humvee. So the high mobility, multi-purpose wheeled vehicle that so many of us have driven around in and served in. This is the first vehicle off the production line of the Humvee from AM General.
Charles, along the same vein as the Army Air Corps, is there any information on the Army Signal Corps?
There is definitely. What we do in the museum is that we tell a broad Army story through the eyes of individual soldiers. We don't have specific displays and galleries on specific branches or occupational specialties. What we do is we weave all of these stories through the chronological effect of our storyline.
Great.
So we're at the Cold War Gallery, which includes, of course, the Korean War and the Vietnam War. So in addition to Cold War service in Europe, we cover Vietnam and Korea in this space. The interactive here is a movie that depicts the activation of what we call the GDP, the General Defense Plan, during the Cold War Army in Europe, in Germany specifically, in West Germany. So any of our alums who are Cold War veterans who served in Europe during the Cold War will find this space of interest. We've got this space subdivided into a Korean War gallery, which is, interestingly enough, it's very heavy in text, maps, and photos, and it's less heavy in artifacts because we really see, honestly, the artifact collection begin to reduce a bit in the course of collecting through our history. So we do have comparatively fewer artifacts in our collection from the Korean War era, but still some really interesting pieces. I saw a question earlier. Someone was asking about famous Army soldiers. We do speak in this gallery, of course, about maybe our most famous celebrity soldier, Elvis Presley, who served in the 3rd Armored Division in Germany during the Cold War. Our Vietnam War gallery is effective and evocative as well. The main piece here, of course, is a UH-1 Huey gunship that is hovering over the gallery. This is a Vietnam provenance served gunship. But we really focus on a lot of soldier stories here in the gallery of Vietnam soldiers, including our nurses.
Charles, are all the displays manufactured in the U.S.?
They are. D&P did the work for us at our fabrication warehouse, actually not too far from our location. I really, again, these are just great. These cast figures are incredible. This one depicts a lieutenant in the 3rd Surgical Hospital in Vietnam, and she's got her clipboard and her stethoscope. But I want to show you her clipboard because she's got a little Detroit Lions patch on or a sticker on there. So she was clearly a Detroit Lions fan, and she's got Woodstock.
Poor thing.
So, but just the evocative nature of these is really impressive, and this infantryman's face kind of says it all. He's carrying the M60 machine gun. So those of us in ROTC who carried the M60 on exercises will recognize that face. I know Matt Fine did, and I know he will recognize that. This is an MP serving on Checkpoint Charlie duty in Berlin.
Charles, it sounds like there's a dedicated art gallery. How big is it?
It's 5,000 square feet, and the focus of the gallery is what we call the art of soldiering, and it's pieces that are produced by Army soldiers from the Civil War to today. And it also includes many examples of three-dimensional art, so objects of equipment that soldiers have turned into art. So I really like that feature as well. So we are at the last of our chronological galleries called Changing World. This covers really the end of the Cold War to the present. So a lot of our younger visitors and our currently serving soldiers will really connect with what we see here. We've got a piece of the Berlin Wall, our very own piece here, but we depict Operation Desert Shield and Storm, the peacekeeping operations in the Balkans, and then of course 9/11, post 9/11 operations in Iraq and Afghanistan. And the centerpiece artifact here is a Bradley fighting vehicle, which participated in the 2003 April Thunder Run, the lead attack into Baghdad with the 3rd Infantry Division. And so we have the soldiers' stories told of the soldiers who served in this vehicle. And they really add to the personal impact here. A really sort of evocative piece here. This is a Black Hawk helicopter engine from a helicopter that was shot down in Mogadishu, Somalia, during operations there in Somalia, Task Force Ranger. This is Super 6-1, and this is the recovered, destroyed engine from that helicopter. That helicopter carried Sergeants Shugard and Gordon, the 2 Green Beret soldiers who were killed in action defending the downed members of that helicopter, and earned the Medal of Honor for their actions. The walls of the display are meant to look like a town on this side in Iraq during the Thunder Run. And then as we move through into the Afghanistan section, I do want to point this out. This is all of our recent deployers will recognize this. It's a Connex, a containerized storage unit with soldiers' duffel bags that's about ready to head down range. We've all piled our bags into those. And this, another interesting piece, is a saddle that was used by a Special Forces soldier on a horse in northern Afghanistan in 2001, when the U.S. Army Special Forces fought aside the Northern Alliance to defeat Al-Qaeda in northern Afghanistan. Many of them went into battle on horseback, and this saddle was used by a Green Beret soldier in that action. And there's a small photo there of that action. When we move into the Afghanistan section of the display, we've got 2 unmanned aerial vehicles overhead, and we depict a squad of soldiers in an adobe mud-walled compound in Afghanistan. The motorcycle here was ridden by a Taliban soldier and was recovered from the battlefield in Afghanistan. This display also shows American soldiers using robots and robotic technology to uncover IEDs, improvised explosive devices. Examples of those IEDs are embedded in the floor of the display of this gallery. But we do benchmark this gallery to 9/11, of course. And so many interesting pieces from these conflicts. These are Humvee armored doors that display the evolution of our armor from what we call the hillbilly armor, the early days of the war, all the way up to the up armored Humvees and the MRAPs, some of which soldiers inscribe their unit icons onto and unit insignia. I like that one there. Black Widow.
Charles, question, although none of us want this to happen, is the museum designed for expansion?
It sure is. And so our nonprofit partner, the Army Historical Foundation, is currently engaged in a in a capital campaign to build the phase 2 of the museum, which will give us almost double our display space and the capability to build a large items gallery alongside this to display vehicles and tanks and helicopters.
And while I say that, meaning, of course, we don't want to have any further campaigns that we have to fill a museum for, but understandably so for larger vehicles and more display space.
Yes, we're making history every day, is what I say, and of course, we always need to have space to expand to continue telling our stories. So this gallery ends. We started our tour with a Continental soldier in a Revolutionary War kit, and we end the display with a cast figure in the Army's current kit. So this is provided by the PEO soldier that designs Army soldiers' equipment. And this soldier will always be outfitted in the most current gear that our soldiers wear and use in conflict today. And so this is a U.S. Army soldier in 2021 kit. And the difference, I mean, he's a bigger individual than that Continental Army soldier, but also carries a much heavier load, a much more obviously technological load as well. And one of the items here, of course, this is an ISIS flag that was recovered by American soldiers and Iraqi soldiers during the battles for Mosul in 2014 and 2015.
Charles, a question that I forgot to ask. Someone asked, they said their father is a World War II veteran and he's disabled and he uses a scooter. The space seems rather large, and I'm assuming that it's ADA compliant for scooters.
Yeah, absolutely ADA compliant. And those visitors who need them, we have devices to assist them as well here in the museum as well.
Great.
So we're coming to the end of our hour. It flew by. That happens to me every time I come here. And so we've only really scratched the surface of what's here. As I said, in addition to this level, up on the museum's second floor, again, we have our art gallery. We also have the Nisei Soldier Experience, which talks about the Nisei Japanese American veterans. And it also displays the Congressional Gold Medal that they were awarded while the Smithsonian builds its permanent home for that medal in the American History Museum. Again, as you mentioned, we have the Medal of Honor Garden and the Medal of Honor Experience. And then finally, of course, our museum shop and cafe.
A couple questions that just came in. Yes, this tour was recorded, and we will have that available for folks. Getting a lot of questions in here. I want to make sure. How much of the museum, including the interactive displays, can be seen on the website?
A very good portion. And so we try to both give a look at the physical space on our website, but we also use it to expand with virtual programs. I would recommend to you the book talks and the curators' corners that we host on the website, where the museum's curatorial staff will look at specific objects and delve into the stories that are behind them.
Two last questions before we close out. One is, as a special thing for William and Mary alumni, are there any quote unquote Easter eggs that we should look for? Any really special things that maybe people might miss that have a special meaning?
What a fantastic question. I think I highlighted my favorites. I think the Monkey Able flight suit is incredibly special. I'm going to stay over here because I'm not in a mask, and my museum director and public affairs officer are waiting for me to leave. But do you guys have any Easter eggs? Like, what are your favorite things?
So for me, well, there's so many. So with the macro artifacts, the Higgins boat is one of my favorites.
Yep, Higgins boat. Yep.
And then personal items, Nesta Beast Bible from World War II, the Tontat March, and then the Myers Brothers coats in World War I.
Yep.
Three brothers, all into separate divisions.
Yep. Tammy Call, the director, mentioned that one of her favorites is a Bible that was carried by an American soldier during the Bataan Death March. And then she mentioned also the Myers Brothers, the three uniform coats we saw in the World War I gallery.
Wonderful.
But there's just, there just literally dozens.
Just too much, just too much. Yeah.
you have to all come to see it to see it for yourselves.
Charles, the list of thank yous is a mile long, and you know, from the bottom of my heart to the top of my head, this is just the most incredible thing. And thank you so much for your time. And I know that all of us around the world are excited to someday get there and experience your amazing work in person. Thank you so much.
Great. Well, I look forward to welcoming you all. Please figure out a way to reach out to me if I can host any of our tribe alumni and family when they come to visit. Let me know. I see General Leitner on there. Sir, it is an honor to see you. I'm really happy to see your face. I'm glad you're well. But please, everybody, reach out to me when you come and go Tribe.
Thank you,